I'm sitting here with John Gazeley, Gaz, who's one of my oldest friends. Um, I think we met at art school first of all, weren't we, at Ipswich Art School?
Yeah.
In what was called the basic course, wasn't it? It was the one before, or did you come straight in on pre-dip?
Huh?
Did you come straight in on pre-diploma, or was it basic?
I think it was pre-diploma. I can't remember now.
Yeah, so this was Ipswich High School, Ipswich Art School that used to be in the High Street. And it was quite an amazing time, and quite disastrous in other ways. there was some great people there. There was a landscape painter called Lawrence Self, who you knew much better than I did.
Yeah.
You used to occasionally go out to his gaff and stuff, didn't you? Yeah, so
He was all right.
yeah, and so it is lovely, and I remember he was our tutor, our class tutor, and
Yes.
so down in
He asked you once what you were doing in the art business.
he was the first to notice I was in the wrong business. What was his line? Bring me a,
Huh?
what was his line? Bring me a bottle of your, yeah. He said, bring me a bottle of your sweat one day, John. Yeah, I didn't work very hard at art school. I'm very good actually. And then but there was some. What was strange was we had this guy turned up, and I'm trying to be quite nice on the videos, but he
Huh?
I'm trying to be quite nice on the videos, but I haven't got a lot to say. Um, let's say he was the wrong person to be lecturing 16, 17-year-olds. It was a guy, a Roy Ascot, but he did bring down some phenomenal artists in his wake because he could employ people, and I think he got himself as a principal lecturer or something. That he created Roy Ascot created a post for himself at the art school, didn't he?
Yeah.
And got rid of loads of
I
people.
don't think I can make it with nice.
No, I wasn't. I know. I'm just trying to avoid being. No, I'm trying to be not too the opposite. But no, we didn't get on with him.
Huh?
We didn't get on with him exactly.
No, no.
Well,
you left.
Yeah, that's true.
I hung on there for no other reason than that I had a grant, which I would have had to pay back.
Yeah. So yeah, I left. He kind of. I remember he came round. There was this piece I've been working on for months, and I was very proud of it. And he rarely deigned to come down and visit us at all. You know, he was, and he just walked past it. He went Blackpool Modern Art and walked on, and I was kind of devastated. You don't do that. I mean,
Oh, he couldn't teach to save his life.
yeah, but anyway, it's but there were some interesting people there at the time. I mean, when I first got there, I think she'd left by maybe the next year when you got there, but Maggie Hamlin was there.
I didn't know if she was.
But
She'd been there. I thought that was the year before we were there.
no, that was the year before you were there. But when I was
Oh,
there,
you were there before.
I was there for the year before because I came as a 16-year-old straight from school. But I'm doing basic. I hadn't done A levels or anything. And then I did a basic course, which was there was I forget what it was called. There was a course for 15-year-olds that left because school leaving age was 15 then. And that was very much geared to putting people towards commercial art, sort of practical way to make a living out of your art, really. And then the next year for the 16-year-olds that came in just done O levels, there was basic, and then after that there was pre-dip, which got you into the diploma. And the year before you got there was the last year the national diploma people were just finishing, and Maggie was just one of those. And I really only was conscious of her because she used to sit with her friend in the corner of the cloakroom, playing guitar. Um, but I think she'd gone by the time Brian Eno turned up about the time you were there. Brian was there,
Yeah.
and, and a few came afterwards that became that did all right in the art department. But I left. I just had enough. Um, but we stayed mates.
Yeah.
And then you got I went off and did things. Went on the road and did bits for CSB.
Huh?
And I went on the road and did stuff for CSB, community service volunteers, and all sorts of things. And I came back, and by that time, you were living in a caravan up Bullen Lane
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
with who were the people? Who was the farmer? What was the farmer? Peter.
Mayhew. The
Yeah,
Mayhews. Yeah.
and that was a Mayhews. They were so I mean it was like it was a little social club that place, wasn't it? Really, it was,
Oh, she knew a lot of arty types. Yeah.
um, and then and you were Peter had a few cottages down in the village, didn't
Yes. They
he?
had one anyway, because I lived in it for a while.
And it had no gas, no
Had
anything.
no nothing. No.
Yeah, but you used it as a studio, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then and Brian was there for a while.
Yeah.
Brian Eno with his girlfriend, and the village objected, didn't they?
Yeah.
To living in sin and wrote to the art school. And
Really?
yeah, yeah,
What about Brian?
yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
they're there. So and they so you told me, I think.
Did I? Oh,
Probably.
perhaps I did
Yeah,
know
it's
that.
the trouble with two old men talking. We
Okay.
can't,
Yeah.
it's like, and I kind of used it as a studio. After you moved to your caravan from the cottage, we used used the cottage as a studio, didn't we,
Yeah.
for painting purposes. Um, and you were producing quite large pieces, which you eventually uh, put on an exhibition at the. By which time I'd gone away and come back married and was living in Ipswich, and you put on an exhibition in the art gallery at the High Street.
That's it. Yeah.
Um, and of, of how would you describe your paintings then? You will be embarrassed by this question because you
Yeah.
gave up art after that.
Yeah. Well, I suppose they were sort of propaganda, really.
Yeah, so or propaganda or social realism.
Yeah, I was interested in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what appealed to me about it was the kind of art that they most hated at the art school.
Yeah, um, and it linked across because you were quite interested in the Eastern Bloc at that time.
Yeah, yeah, I seen a lot of Russian pictures in East Germany. Yeah,
Because you managed to get to East Germany, didn't you,
yeah.
during that time?
Well, I went with a peace group. We were supposed to be clearing rubble for after the bombing in Dresden.
So you gone early. You went before you went for Anton. So Anton was your second trip to.
Oh, it was about my third trip there.
Oh, so I remember you coming back and talking about old ladies who sort of with collections of Dresden china.
Yeah. Huh?
I remember you talking about old ladies with collections of Dresden china and
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the trip I remember you making was in a little Fiat It was something. It looked like a minibus that had been put in the washing machine and came out shrunk,
Yes,
didn't it?
it was a extraordinarily hopeless vehicle, but it got us there.
So and and you quite liked East Germany. I remember you described it to me as a worker's paradise because people work very slowly.
Yeah, people didn't do a lot of work. At least the ones I knew didn't.
And
It was much maligned, really. I suppose there are awful things about it, like there are awful things about everywhere. But they never said anything about the nice things about it, like the excellent health service and so on, and
there's no such thing as
the way.
unemployment or people. Everyone was housed.
Huh?
Everyone was housed as well.
Yeah, for about £2 a month or something ridiculous.
Yeah. So, because I remember going there just after the wall had come down when it was still East Germany, and the and things were sort of closing by the day because there was very well, things like the youth service and things were very well funded,
Yes,
and musicians made a living as
yeah,
musicians.
that's right. Well, artists did as well.
Yeah, which was yeah, and then you moved into a flat in Woodbridge Road, I think was because that was the reason I moved back to Ipswich. You had a flat in Woodbridge Road
That's
before you
right.
had
Yeah,
Connery Road,
yeah,
and I was living in London. Got married, and I was married, and the and it was impossible to get anywhere of any size to live in London even then. Um, you could afford, and so we moved back, and uh, and I think yeah, you were the reason we moved back, really, because you could find it was, and then we managed to get a flat in Bolton Lane,
that's right. Yeah,
and by which time you'd started picture restoring.
yes.
So how did you get into picture restoring?
Well, I started doing all sorts of odd jobs to make a living when I was thinking about being a painter, and one of the odd jobs was restoring pictures for a dealer called Ken Moss, who had various enterprises in Ipswich, and eventually I worked for a little while for another picture restorer,
And
and then somebody introduced me to a portrait dealer in London called Sydney Sabin, who kept me in work for donkey's years.
yeah, that was just up Bond Street, wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
Port Street. Yeah,
yeah. I remember that I'd been well, it was Ken Moss who gave me an old Austin A50 van, and we went down on about the third day I owned it. And I passed my test years before, but I hadn't the faintest idea how to drive. And we took a lot of your paintings down to London, um, and it was quite exciting because I'd certainly never driven a van before. I'd never gone around a place like Marble Arch, just relying on very small wing mirrors. And I just remember driving round and round it, like saying, "How do I get off here?" And then it died. But we managed to get all the paintings delivered. Um, and yeah, I remember you picking up a private job where it was the word yuppie didn't exist, but she would have now been described as that. And she gave you this picture and said, "How long is it going to take? I'm an immediate sort of person." And you replied to her, "I'm an eventually sort of person."
yes,
Yeah. But you still managed, despite being an eventually sort of person, you still managed to make a living out of all this.
yeah.
And
They do need slapping down occasionally. Those people in the art trade, yeah, some of them anyway.
Yeah, so. And then you start. Then you've got a little shop uh, in St Helens.
Yeah,
So which I still have a lot of prints that I bought from, or Rose used to print. We'd keep each other going. If Gaz was broke, he'd sell me, he'd sell us a print, and then when we got broke, we'd sell it back to him. And eventually, I ended up with quite a lot of them, or Rose did. And there was no, certainly I certainly didn't have the money. Rose was the one that was working, um, and and of course, our watering hole was a pub in Bolton Lane called the Wallpack.
yes, the Wolfpack.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, you could virtually write a history of pubs. You know, at art school, it was lunchtimes at the Arboretum, which was in the high street, where
Oh, that's
you
right. Yeah,
know, and it was that was the best bit of art school, I think, with the discussions in, you know, sort of sitting nattering away around a
yeah.
pub table, and the Sorrel Horse, which is no longer there, but the Sorrel Horse behind the Suffolk College, because um, we used to the all the workshops for things like sculpture and printing and everything. No, not printing, but um, uh, uh, the carpentry and stuff was. We had one side of a little block, T block, I think, in the college, and the apprentices used to have the real people who do it like real trades were on the other side of the corridor. They'd always be amused by the efforts at welding by the art students and so on. So there was, but the pub near by that time, the pub of choice was the Woolpack, which was kind of it became a nightly. It was a nightly event, wasn't it?
I think it was more or less.
Yeah, my flat on the way back, or Rosemeyer's flat, was in Bolton Lane, which you know where was the after hours drinking and long games of Monopoly. And by this time, of course, Tony Reader, who I'd seen when I'd first come to Ipswich, you know, because you used to be a group of you used to hang around together. Um, Tony, Alan David, uh, Neil,
Oh yeah, Neil was his name.
who so actually did a lot of uh, uh, public artwork. He painted wings, the bust for Wings, Paul McCartney's Wings in the end.
Did he?
He
Yeah.
only moved down to Brighton, and Tony Reader, and by this time Tony had opened Orwell Books,
Yes.
which became another sort of centre for alternative Ipswich, if you like. There was
I think he started. Was that after I left the art school? He started it.
yeah, it was after the art school. Um, And of course, the other pub for the evenings while we were, you know, like it was after I'd left the art school, but uh, was uh, was the Black Horse, with which wasn't like the Black Horse is now. It was just a sort of really a back room, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And a snug, uh,
Covered in nicotine. Yeah.
covered in nicotine, and all they sold was cider. I had beer, but there was always this barrel of cider or a container of cider on the counter with bits, loads of bits in.
Yeah, well, the poor old hobos used to like that. They
Yeah,
used to bring in bottles of surgical spirit and put a shot of that in it.
yeah. So
Deadly, deadly, I think.
yeah, yeah. I remember walking in there, and I had a copy of Yevtushenko's poems in my pocket. And Alan David said, "Oh, you're an intellectual now, John." um, so there was a and yeah, and we go out. I mean, that was all that Bull and Farm time and Bull and Lane time. Uh, but later on with the shop and Orwell Books, um, I remember us all sitting upstairs with because all books. So Tony used to sell an enormous number of alternative papers. Strange things to find Ipswich, middle of Suffolk. Um, uh, Things like the Wobblies paper from because he was a serious anarchist, was Tony, wasn't he? And so he sold the Wobblies paper. And he also sold, the alternative papers. I mean, obviously International Times and stuff, but San Francisco Oracle, and there was one issue of San Francisco Oracle. The whole issue was a conversation between Timothy Leary, Allen Ginsberg, Alan Watts, and someone else. It was just a transcript of this conversation. And we were very serious about alternative ways of living at that time, I think.
Yes.
It was so upstairs, gathered upstairs from all the books and discussed this paper. And amongst the people there was Desmond, who who'd fought in the Spanish Civil War.
Desmond.
Desmond, who was married, who lived in Burgolt and was
I
married.
didn't know he'd fought in it. He was married to a woman called Libertad, whose family were involved in it. Yeah.
Oh well, I thought Desmond had been over there because I thought he'd given you that shotgun you had up in Fulham that was all patched, that you used for scaring.
Tony actually gave it to me. Yeah. I don't know where it came from.
I thought it came from.
Yeah, the barrels are all brazed. You had to pray every time you fired it.
Yeah, but keep the rabbits off your collector's patch. You'd occasionally hit one.
I used to live on them.
Yeah, there were bacon bits and rabbit.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so that's so there was all these characters. I thought my memory had Desmond as fighting in the Spanish Civil War, but I'm just trying to remember conversations from 50 years ago, or longer. So it's not nothing is certain.
It was Desmond who introduced me to Sabin, actually. So he kind of made my career, really.
Yeah, and the weird bit they did in order to pray, that was a time of self-sufficiency was a big thing.
Yes.
And so the friary across the road gave them or let them use some land in the friary to grow their vegetables, which I thought was interesting because the same in sort of the way a continuum in time, because that friary became Old Hall, which has just had its 50th anniversary. Which is one of the oldest communes in the country now. You had to be we were all very excited when it happened, but you had to be a very rich hippie to buy into it, I think, at the time. Well, no, certainly compared to us, who were lacking in capital. Then after a million years, you had this wonderful place in Faunery Road. It was about 4 stories, was it?
Yeah, with the basement it was.
Yeah. So lived in the middle and worked at top and bottom.
Yeah.
And so then you bought this place here. You sold it and had enough left to buy this place up in Wisset.
Yeah.
However, I remember it took days to move my old Luton van.
Yes.
To move you up here. And have you unpacked all the boxes?
No.
No.
No, it's still all in boxes.
And it's but it's been a great journey. It's been, and I mean, I have to thank you. I think for a lot of my political consciousness and unconsciousness, um, because that I hadn't the fact that I'd swallowed a lot of propaganda and stuff beforehand, and you were able to,
I think we all did, mate.
yeah, yeah. There was nothing particularly individual about that, but I mean, you caused me to question quite a lot, and
Yeah,
yeah,
well, that was.
and still doing so. Our earlier conversation.
I think that was the meaning of life, really.
Yeah,
The happiest day at the art school that poor old Lawrence Self referred to it as that awful day. And Ascot came in a tantrum and said, "You can't sit about arguing about this all day. We know more about it than you do. You'll just have to do what we say." By complete contrast, when I got to university, the dean of the school gave an introductory talk, and he said at the end of it, "I'm just going to make some announcements about what you have to do to register for courses. After that, during your time here at Essex, don't necessarily believe anything that we say." At that moment, I knew I was in a happy place.
yeah. I mean, that was the thing. If we could get, I mean, I forgot about. Yeah, I mean, thank you. This is quite important. With it's you all went to, well, not all. There was a few of you managed to get grants as mature students
Yes, it was
for
wonderful.
to Essex University, and so and I remember, oh, um, that was a friend of ours that was involved in fishing. I think probably with Trish's husband then, um, and or maybe not, but and they used to bring around fresh fish, and
Oh, yes, who was
I
that?
can't remember his name. And tragically, their boat breached on the
That's
way
right,
way
yeah.
in. But he they'd uh but we sat round in my front room, and I was, because I was told at school, like a lot of us, that you know my career's advice was, you're never going to do anything, but you better go and find an art school, because I could draw a bit. And certainly the idea of going to university at that point was totally out of the question. The idea of even getting any A levels. He sat round and said, "Oh, it's really easy. You just got to go and get some A levels in evening class, and then you could, because you had A levels, didn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
that's
not 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 that good, but I had to.
yeah. And as a mature student, you could get into university with two A levels.
Yeah,
And so and so yeah, that's why you came the year after me, because to art school. And then and so I applied to Essex and UEA, but because they were both within travelling distance, I could commute backwards and forwards to them.
yeah,
And
I did the same, but I got into the other one.
yeah, you got to Essex, and that was my first choice. And then I liked the system at UEA better. It was they both did American studies, and American studies was something you could do. I mean, I was interested in it, but mainly because of the poetry and stuff, and a lot to do with oral books, because Tony stocked all that stuff, um, and so there was always a nice supply of contemporary American literature. Um, but I decided to go to UEA at the time. Who else went to? Did Anton go to Essex?
Yes,
Yeah, there was a couple of you. You sort of was a
Yeah, we
little.
used to share a car, go down there.
Yeah, it was like the social group decided, oh, there's grants going. This is
Well, it was a golden age.
yeah, yeah. So and I got a grant for being a married man, so I got extra. Um, so I slipped off and worked for Newey and Air during the holidays. And I went down and I got it was easy, not, it was very accessible. Further education was really accessible because although I had no A levels, there was outstations where you could go and, I mean, I think I went down to Civic College or Civic College, as it was called then. And I did evening classes there, and I got 2 A levels in a year of evening classes there. But education was normal, like it should be accessible for whatever
Yeah,
age you are.
yeah.
Oh, that we could go back to that, or go forward to it rather, because it seems to be very sensible. Um, and so, um, but and then you went to. Did you do a master's after that?
PhD.
You did a PhD, which only took you 2,000 years, didn't it?
It took me far too long. Well, I was getting into money problems by then, so I had to work a lot of the time.
Yeah, because you're the money trail sort of finished by the time you graduated with your first degree.
Well, it was.
There was grants for MAs and PhDs, but
Yeah,
they're
yeah. I
real.
got a
You did,
grant to do it. Free education all the way up to doctoral level. Wonderful.
yeah. I knew you didn't have to pay fees, but did they give you some support as well?
Yeah.
Good Lord. Um,
I mean,
yeah,
it wasn't enough because I had a house to run and all that, but I mean, it was a huge help. Yeah,
yeah. So we were lucky.
we were lucky.
Um, uh, yes,
Lucky bastards, as the young say to us.
yes. Yeah, so as a punishment, they've taken away our winter fuel allowance. You had it all early. Yeah.
Well, what they need to understand is it doesn't have to be like this.
No.
It wasn't like this then, and it doesn't have to be like this now.
Yeah, and that I mean that's what people, when they're saying we can't afford, we can't afford, we can't
Yeah,
afford.
yeah,
We were the sort of post-war generation,
yeah.
and Britain was totally broke
Yeah, the
after the war,
country was in ruins, housing stock was all smashed up,
and they
and they did
regenerated
it.
it by getting money.
That's right, they did it.
The whole idea of, I mean, the whole idea is nonsense that there is no money. If you can do it after that, the devastation of the Second World War, you can certainly do it now. Well, thank you, guys. A
That's all
little, a
right.
little trip down memory lane. You actually remembered some stuff
Yeah.
and reminded me of some stuff. Right.